Hello again everyone from Tokyo, Japan, and welcome back to Japan Vintage Camera, where it's a very beautiful day here at the park. It's not as cold as it was here last week, and it's not at all windy. I decided to come out and have my lunch here and to go ahead and make a video after I finish my lunch. The weekend here was rather quiet. Saturday was a little bit cold and windy to be out and about, but on Sunday I went walking around the area. I had to go to Don Quixote to buy some computer stuff for a project I've been working on. As I was walking back, I decided to kind of take a short video clip of Roppongi Crossing to show what it's like on a Sunday afternoon, which is about as quiet a time as you'll ever see in Roppongi. This crossing is one of the most famous in Japan after, say, Shibuya Crossing. It's not the busiest, to be sure, but it happens to be in the center of Japan's nightclub district, or a most notorious nightclub district. It's really difficult to kind of reconcile this area with a lot of the other, the nightclub district with the other things which happen to be in the same area. For example, the Roppongi Hills housing and shopping areas are here. Tokyo Midtown is here. Some of the most expensive housing in all of the world happens to be in this area, as well as this nightclub district. In addition to this, some of Japan's top elementary and junior high schools are located in this area, so it's a huge mix of people. You have nightclub people, you have rich people, you have school kids, tourists, and everything else. So really interesting area to be in. I never thought when I was younger that I would one day live in such an area, but here I am. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started with the subject of today's video, and today I'm going to be talking about another Yashica camera. Today's camera is going to be the Yashica Electro 35 MC, which was introduced by Yashica in 1972. For those of you who are new to my channel, I sell vintage Japanese cameras in my online store, japanvintagecamera.com. I also have an Etsy store, and it is also called Japan Vintage Camera. So if you'd like to buy this Yashica or another vintage camera, please visit one of my stores. I'll post links to my stores in the description below the video. So as I said, the Electro 35 MC, and I like to think the words or letters MC or initials stand for miniature camera, because this is the smallest of the Electro 35 cameras. It was one of the last of the Electro 35 cameras made. It came out around the same time as the Electro 35 GL, and then following the production of this in the GL, newer models of plastic cameras were introduced, namely cameras like the Yashica Snap and the Yashica Diary, as well as later ones like the MF and such. So this camera has kind of the distinction of being one of the last of the classic Electro 35 cameras, and also the last of the aperture priority automatic Electro cameras. The later cameras were fully automatic point and shoot cameras. So this camera is quite a really interesting camera because of first its design and also its operating features, which allow for a bit more creative control than the other later Yashica cameras offered you. Let's go ahead and take a look at the features, controls, functions, and how to load film and all that in the Yashica Electro MC. Starting at the top here, you can see it's a very plain and simple design. Really not much to distract you or much to have to learn how to use. There are no, like the camera I showed the other day, the Contax RX with its numerous dials, levers, and buttons across the top. Top of this camera here, all you have to operate the camera is the winding lever and the shutter button. On this side here, we have the film rewind knob, which also doubles as the release for opening the film door if you pull it upward. We have a flash shoe located here. Unlike the other cameras of this vintage, the GL and the FC, the MC does not have a hot shoe on the top, but you can use a flash by using the PC sync socket here on the left side. We have this little indicator lamp, which if you depress the shutter part way and the camera is working, you should see this light coming on. So it's kind of an exposure and battery check light all in one. We have the shutter release button, as I just mentioned a moment ago, which is threaded for a standard cable release. And then we have this locking collar, which you can use to lock the shutter button so you don't accidentally depress it if the shutter is cocked. And of course here we have the film winding and shutter charging lever. On the back of the camera here, we have nothing at all other than the viewfinder window. And the viewfinder window on this camera, you'll notice, is kind of wide and a little bit large. bigger than some of the other Electro 35 cameras. And this is because on this camera we have a built-in focusing scale on the right side of the viewfinder. And as you focus the lens, a needle moves up and down in the viewfinder to show your focusing distance. It shows 3 images, an image of a head at the bottom all the way up to a mountain scene at the top, which shows when you're from close focus to infinity. This is a wonderful system, and it makes the camera very easy to focus. A lot different than similar cameras that were introduced by, say, I guess the Konica C35 is the one that most comes to mind. It's an automatic camera, and if you look through, you actually had to look through the bottom of the window to look at the dials. Whereas this one here, I really like the setup it has. It makes it very easy to use the camera if you're not really used to the scale focus system, and you want to be able to focus the camera accurately, quickly. On the bottom of the camera, we have the standard 1/4-inch tripod socket. We have a release button, which you have to depress to rewind the film. And here we have a battery cover, which is pretty much identical to the one you see on the Yashica GX camera. But when you open it up, you notice this camera uses a 4LR44 or 4SR44 battery instead of the mercury batteries, which were common in pretty much all of the other Electro 35 cameras. The wonderful thing about this is these cameras are very plentiful and cheap, and you'll never have to struggle with finding a battery for this camera or having to use an adapter before you can operate the camera. On the front here we have the viewfinder window, and of course we have the little Yashica Atom on the side here. Kind of the gold-plated one indicates that like the contacts and such on the inside are gold-plated, which makes the camera more reliable and less likely to suffer from corrosion and such. The very front of the camera we have the lens here, and this is the 40mm f2.8 lens, which came in the Yashica FC. It's a very good lens and more sophisticated than the 38mm lens, which it was replaced with for, say, the Snap and the Diary and other cameras. This is actually a very high quality lens, and though it's not as fast as, say, on the Yashica GX or Yashica CCN, when I'm out shooting, I find I almost never shoot at the wide apertures anyway, so you aren't really losing much if you're getting what is called a slower lens with the camera like this, and this lens is a really wonderful performer. Above this we have the light meter cell. This is a 48mm lens hood here. This accepts 48mm slide-on hood, so it would be like a 46mm filter size. If you want to use a hood or a filter, the hood you have to make sure kind of comes out a little bit. You don't want to be too close because it can block some of the light going through the light meter window, which can cause your images to be overexposed. I recommend always keeping a filter on the Yashica MC because this filter ring around the front is actually made of anodized aluminum, and it's quite fragile. If you drop the camera and it hits anywhere on this filter ring, it's going to get dented quite easily. On the positive side, it's soft enough where you can almost push it out with your finger, but it's better to keep a filter on it. For one thing, it keeps dust off the lens and such, and for another thing, if you drop it, the ring around the filter itself will absorb the shock rather than the filter ring on the camera. The filter ring doubles as the focusing ring. It's knurled on both sides here so you can get a good grip. We have a focusing range in feet and meters, and a close focusing range of just under 1 meter. Behind that we have a kind of combination of things. We have the aperture ring, and as you turn this we have an aperture rate of course f2.8 range of f2.8 to f16. And besides the numbers for the aperture, we have these little pictures here or engravings. We have sun, clouds, and windows. This is for sunny days, cloudy days, and shooting indoors. So this is a kind of a good rough guide on what aperture to select in any of these situations. Next to that we have a window which shows what film speed you have selected, and you select the film speed with this little lever here. You kind of push it in to move it up and down, and we have a range all the way up to ISO 1000, which is about the same as you get in most of the full-size later model Electros, and a little bit larger than what we have in cameras like the say GX or CC or CCN. We have a self-timer lever located right here. Putting the film in the camera is quite simple. You lift up on the lever here, pull this open, and just open the door, film door like so. This camera is a little dirty on the side. I haven't gotten around to cleaning this one up, but this just arrived in the mail the other day. So I'll go ahead and work on this tonight and get all the light seals and stuff replaced. But anyway, with the rewind knob pulled outward, drop in your film canister here and then push the knob back downward to lock the film canister in place so it doesn't fall out. Pull your film leader across the window here and feed it into the take-up spool, and simply wind the film and fire the shutter until the film is pulled all the way across and the holes on the bottom side of the film are being I guess taken up by this little take-up sprocket here on the bottom. Then close the door and go ahead and wind and fire the shutter until you get to the number 1 and the camera is ready to go. Now the Yashica Electro 35MC is a great all-purpose camera. It's a very compact camera with Yashica's very sophisticated and very accurate electronically controlled shutter system. The aperture priority system allows you to adjust for the depth of field for various situations, which gives you a little bit more control over the finished photos than cameras like the Konica C35, which was the closest competitor to this camera. The quality of the lens is really amazing on these. This camera has kind of, I guess, attained cult status here in Japan, and they've become more valuable, a lot more valuable than they used to be. I was surprised at how much the prices of these cameras have increased over the last 10 years or so. They came in 2 different colors. They came in black or chrome. The black painted cameras were just simple black paint over brass, so they kind of get a little brassy around the corners with a lot of use. The chrome finish is more durable. I think a lot of people prefer the chrome finish nowadays, whereas a dozen years ago or so the black finish was more popular. The camera is very reliable, very rugged, believe it or not, with the exception of the filter ring. And it's especially well suited to, as I say about other scale focus cameras, to street and candid photography, where you can simply preset the focus to a certain distance and preset the aperture for the effect you want. And if you come across, a scene, and the kind of scenes that you try to get in street photography or candid photography are very fluid. People don't often sit still or move, so you don't have a lot of time to take a photograph. So being able to preset everything on a camera like this, all you pretty much have to do is just lift it to your eye and press the shutter button and you have a photo. You don't have to mess with anything. This camera will operate, if you get used to using the scale focus system, you'll find that it's quicker than most modern autofocus systems and a lot less noisy than a lot of cameras, especially SLR cameras, which is why cameras like this are it's really wonderful for that kind of shooting. But anyway, I'm out of time here. I've got to get back and try to get some more work done. I've got a lot of cameras I have to ship this afternoon. I plan to be listing this camera later on tonight. The other day I mentioned that I had received a lot of new cameras, especially some really nice higher end stuff. I'm going to try to get a few of those listed tonight and hopefully get the rest of them ready tomorrow. So if you'd like to see those, please visit my stores via the links below the video. And if you want to see more videos, please subscribe. If you like the video, please like it. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you tune in again soon.